Up next, we've got Janna from Tomato Elephant Studios, a Brisbane-based company. Janna is a software engineer and front-end performance specialist from Tomato Elephant Studios. She makes web applications run fast and shares her knowledge with the world at local meetups and conferences. She's a great presenter at our local Brisbane WordPress meetup, and I'm glad that she's able to be here today. This session is Secure by Design, integrating security into your web project. Everyone, give it a round of applause.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Secure by Design. Hopefully it will be not too boring, because security is a bit, one of those post-factum things. Hello, my name is Janna. I'm from Brisbane, software engineer at Tomato Elephant Studio. And if you're in Brisbane, come and say hello at the WordPress meetup. We have a great bunch of people gathering every month and sharing our knowledge on about WordPress and whatever we learn, everything else. I'm fairly new to WordPress. I'm from .NET, PHP, Symfony background. So if you see something that's wrong, or you say, no, this plugin is a no-no, please let me know. So today we'll cover on our agenda the state of WordPress security, what is Secure by Design, where it comes from, and Secure by Design project. So this will be a very technology agnostic, and at the same time, I will try to put some plugins that are maybe suitable for this particular area. Also, I'm not affiliated with any of the plugin developers or manufacturers, so I'm not trying to sell anything. And we'll look quickly at enhancing developer practices, and we'll go through the action list. So, state of WordPress security. If you look at the news in 2024 and even before, some of them were pretty scary. So many million of WordPress websites are vulnerable, or they might be affected by these security bugs, and so many websites were hacked. Just Google the news. But these are mostly the plugins, and it's also because WordPress is so popular. So it's so easy to start your own plugin, share it with the world, and suddenly some feature that the developer didn't think about is vulnerable to the execution, or to inject malicious code into your website. Where WordPress core is very safe, is very focused on security. They have security team, and they work with the hosting providers as well to find any vulnerabilities. So if we'll, how does one find out what is safe or not? So there's this thing that's called CVE catalog. CVE stands for Common Vulnerabilities Exposures. So there are lots of companies that submit their findings to this catalog. It's run by American Security Infrastructure, Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, and by lots of other companies. So the security, so CVE record shows the affected software, what's the weakness it provides, and it exposes, and the severity of the vulnerability. So here's an example of of two recent issues that were released. So some very critical exposures and meetup authentication, so someone can take over your meetup account through WordPress plugin that hasn't been patched yet, and something that was also critical uploaded, authenticated uploaded files to a local, to your WordPress installation that has been patched as well. And if we look at the statistics for WordPress, so in 10 years, WordPress had only about 360-something vulnerabilities, and 5 this year. So this is core. And the plugins, yeah, it's through the roof because it's just very, very popular. It's like 40% of internet runs it. Anyone can write a WordPress plugin. They get old. New vulnerabilities are being found all the time. So yeah, that's why it's a huge number. So let's try to reduce this number. Yeah, and you can see as internet grows, as popularity grows, number of vulnerabilities grows as well. Here's another quick statistics just from this last week. We have 234 vulnerabilities in plugins, 6 in themes, nothing in the core. So also what happens next to the plugin if it hasn't been patched, there is a security issue reason for the plugin to be removed from WordPress.org, so users can be notified, please don't use this plugin anymore, it's outdated. And this particular plugin was vulnerable for 13 years. So check your installation. Yeah, because they found this vulnerability only in August. Yeah. So why do we need to protect our web applications, even if it's a small website that just a brochureware site? So you just need to keep the trust of your users. If it's a small non-for-profit website with a donation page or a donation link, the attacker can change the donation link to something else, and you're not getting your donations, and someone else is getting them. So it's just even to this simple application of hacking, or someone can hijack your htaccess files on the server. So security is multi-level. We have cloud or hardware security level, infrastructure, networking systems, application, and human level of the security. So someone can call you as a company and say, hey, can you update my website? Do you really know that it's your client calling, or like social engineering? So in this particular talk, I'll focus on the application level of security, but it might intersect with other levels of security, as whereas developers, we wear many hats. We do systems and networking and other things. So what is secure by design? Secure by design principles should be implemented during the design phase of the product development. And it's a core business requirement rather than just an afterthought. It's not just, oh, let's develop a web application and then we'll put the word fence on it and it will be all right. Well, not really. So where did it come from? About a year ago, American CISA, which is Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, and 6 countries came together, and now it's 17 different US and international partners that signed to the Secure by Design guidelines. So, and Australia is included in there. So what do they propose is that the products should be resilient out of the box. And the configuration should not be, secure configuration should not be very difficult. And it should not be the customer's issue. For example, when you buy a car, it already has seat belts. You don't have to install them, and hence it's not a user problem. So one of those things is if you remember, baby monitors or security cameras several years ago, they had default passwords, and hackers just discovered that and were able to look into your baby monitor or security camera through. There was lots of reports about that. So it just, after security by design came together and they're like, oh, we should not use default passwords. That was a bad idea. And actually in April 2024, in the UK, they said, okay, it's illegal to use default passwords. They had to actually put that into legislation. So there are several principles and tactics defined by Secure by Design. So, and it's to create the security first mindset, so that to educate yourself, to get the default security features. We'll talk about them later. It's also know how to manage the security events, any breaches, and have a vulnerability disclosure policy. Also, it has a really good list of bad practices. So you can have a look through this document and see if your web application, if your company follows the bad practices and fix it. Another really good resource that I based this presentation on is the government guidelines from Australian government. So it's a secure your website. So it also has a list very similar to Secure by Design. And the guidelines for software development as well. I have all the resources in the presentation for you to read later. There's also technical guidelines. There's the organization OWASP, Open Worldwide Application Security Project, tracks top 10 most critical security risks, publishes them so that you can make sure that your development practices will mitigate those, and provide lots of tools, resources, cheat sheets, and security testing guidelines to make sure that you follow their guidelines so that when you need to do a penetration testing for your client, which is a security testing of your website, you can pass with flying colors. All right, so these are the, what's the Secure by Design project is based on. So let's start the Secure by Design project. It's like a mobile-first project, so when you know that your design has to be on the mobile, then you'll base your design on the mobile. So we'll just say we need to build a web application for the client. I'm basing this in the GitLab or GitHub as tasks, but why not putting all your code into your GitLab, GitHub repository? You'll never lose your code, you'll track changes, but in this particular case, I'm using it as a project management tool to make sure all the tasks are checked in. So, number one, when you put all your code in GitLab, GitHub, they provide a lot of functionality for features and tools for static and dynamic application security testing. So they'll actually tell you if there are vulnerabilities in your code already. And they do provide secret storage as well. So if you have any API keys to your maps, APIs, or any other third-party components, you can store them securely in GitLab or GitHub as a security variables, so then you don't have to copy it around and store it somewhere. So the next one is vulnerability disclosure program. It's broken into two tasks. One is define it with your security team, with your project management, with your client. If someone finds a vulnerability on your website, how do they report it to you? Who here has a security TXT on their website? Yes. Have you? So the security TXT is basically a vulnerability disclosure little file that says, oh, if you found something on our website that might not be secure, please email here. So if you go to wordpress.org and /securitytxt, you'll find what wordpress.org has it. So the next one is a big one. It's authentication. So as we said, there is no default passwords. So, and WordPress just from 1st of October, WordPress.org now requires everyone to have two-factor authentication for the plugin developers. So this is now a default in WordPress, in security by design as well, to have multi-factor authentication. You can extend that as well and develop with your client and with your team authentication strong password policy. So what considered to be a strong password, not just default password. That takes time and takes resources. Also prevent brute force attacks. How many logins do you allow before you lock the user out or IP address out? Also inactive logout. How long do you allow a user to be on your website before they get logged out? And session limits. Can it be only one or many? Also, you can hide login page. Security by obscurity is not security, but, oh well, you can try to do that. So look through the list of the things that you can do to secure your login and authentication. So next one is HTTP security headers. So it protects the users who are browsing from any third-party, unauthorized third-party JavaScripts or images execution or anything. So for example, WordPress.org is not very great at it. So with they're not strict transport security, so they're not strict HTTPS. Permissions, they might take over your camera and microphone because they don't specify that, oh, we don't allow this, or and content security policy means that they will load third-party JavaScript libraries that you don't know about, and they don't have a white list of them. So basically, there is a new world of security headers. And yeah, you can mitigate that by installing the plugins to make sure that all your security headers are in check. And then you can check it and test it with securityheaders.com. So this recommendation comes from OWASP, HTTP headers cheat sheet. So every penetration testing is looking through these requirements as well. So next one, API security. Pop quiz. Do you think WordPress has JSON API enabled by default or not? Yes? No? Yeah, so it's enabled by default. Does it have to be? So it means that anyone on the internet can access your API, browse it's all public data. It's all permission controlled. So if you don't have permissions to something, obviously the API is not going to reveal it. But it's the core, and you don't really know how plugins are handling this information. So OWASP API security project recommends to make sure that you look after the API, REST API endpoints. You make sure you can disable it if users don't really need it. Some WordPress websites put a strict security protocols on them. You can make sure you can put the throttle in, making sure that someone doesn't hit your API too many times and things like that. So it's called the mega task. So just make sure you apply something. Oh. You're right there. All right, all good? Yeah, so just make sure that your API, REST API data is secure. For example, this little API CVE appeared not that long time ago. So basically the API endpoint was to enable this particular plugin was just available to the rest of the world. So that's not very nice. It's not very safe. And the fix is just in one line, line number 27. Can user manage options? So that's as easy the fix was. So the next, just other security features that you can implement. So brute force attacks on your forms, put in captchas and honeypots. When users upload files, do you have antivirus on your hosting? Because hosting might be on Linux and someone uploads a file and it's fine, but then someone downloads the file on Windows and then it's boom. How do you prevent XSS attacks? So there is a prevent XSS vulnerability plugin. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not, maybe it's time to test it. And enable an audit log. Do you know what users, admins do on your website, what kind of settings they enable, disable, so that you can trace your users and editors' activity. And then when we move things to production, that's the next step to secure your web application as well. Maybe you would disable the admin on production or restrict the access to specific IP addresses or make an extra authentication on it. So maybe you would disable developer-only modules like debug bar. And another thing that they recommendation is do not show debugger or error messages to the users. Usually it's just like 404 or something that went wrong when you look at how Google does it. It's not like, oh, here's the full stack of PHP error and it shows you passwords and your PHP version and everything else. No, just say, oh, something that went wrong, try again. Also make sure that all your folders and files secure and that no one can browse it. It's especially applicable if you're running your own hosting and you do your own infrastructure. And there's lots of other additional items, configure SSL, add CDN, uptime monitoring, traffic monitoring, things like that. But that's already DevOps type of infrastructure type of thing. But yeah. And the last thing on the list, when you go production, install the security plugin firewall so that you have a WordFence, WP, Scan, Jetpack, or any other of those that you like. So this is 20 issues to implement a project to be secure. You don't have to implement all of them. You can pick and choose. You can say, hey, This is a very small organization. They don't really need so much authentication control. But for the government organization, oh yes, we allow only one login. We allow them logging in only from these URLs or from these IP addresses or things like that. Or they really need to have very strict content policy so that it goes through only allowed third-party JavaScripts are loaded onto the website. So, and also this project gives you a bit of a food for thought to see what's the gap between your current projects and the full-on security. And it's not full-on security. You can add more and more to it. How secure is your current project? Or give idea to add extra security. So the next one is, as a developer, how do we write better secure code? Especially with like lots of security features or security vulnerabilities that were discovered. It's only like one line of code to fix. And of course, it's the don't trust the user, so make sure you're handling the input. Make sure you don't pass your parameters to SQL queries. Encode the output. Again, don't trust the user. Easy fix, you can put CDN on your web application and it will stop XSS attacks, so cross-site scripting attack when someone tries to inject JavaScript. So if you'll see in the full text search, they're trying to put some JavaScript in there, and it's like Cloudflare says just no. But there are some best practices. There's a list of best coding practices on WordPress.org and documentation and development. Really good resources for this. So they break it down into sanitized data. So use WP-XS or sanitized text area field. So when you get the data from the user, then you need to prepare SQL queries. So use WP-DB prepare rather than WP-DB execute or get results straight away. So that you actually give all the untrusted user input to the framework to process, and it will sanitize it for you. Then you have escaping data, so if you don't trust the input, escape HTML, escape JavaScript, things like that. So there's lots of different methods in WordPress just on this URL. You can have a read later. And other practices for the web development. That's not all of them. And how can we learn? How can we see? How can we identify the bad security development practices? Well, just have a look at the vulnerabilities that were discovered previously and have a look at how they were fixed. So for example, this one, pretty recent one again, some WooCommerce had HTML injections quite recently. And here's a change on how they fixed it. So anyone sees what's wrong with the original line and how they fixed it? I think the most obvious is line 145 on the bottom. So they just set customer no to direct request value without any sanitization. So yeah, so all they had to do is just do WC sanitized text area. Otherwise, users could have inserted any type of calls in the JavaScript, and if admin opens that, that's it. Here's another example as well. Anyone sees a problem in this particular issue? Exactly. So user uploads a file, the code goes through the CSV file and just insert everything directly into the database. So after this, you can just drop everything. Yeah, so yes, once you check all the, a couple of different vulnerabilities and see how they were fixed, you'll have the visual memory saying, oh, this is wrong, I can fix that. I know how to write that now. So that's how, at least I learn how to be a better developer as well. Yep, so use prepare. And practice. That's a very long slide, but yeah, so that's when you look at the a plugin, see anything what's can be an issue, a security issue. Any debugging information left? Is there input validation? Is there validation of the user? If there is some sort of URL, admin URL available, how is error handling being done? And review the previous security issues for this particular plugin. WordFans has a really good database of all the security issues they've collected over the years. And they, if you go there for this particular plugin, you'll see the list of the security issues for this plugin as well. And action. So if you are not doing security yet, for the next week or now, subscribe to a security advisory. So just go to WordFans and subscribe to security advisory. You will receive weekly emails saying which security vulnerabilities were discovered in WordPress environment. Also, there is a government security advisory that will tell you which really big bad problems happening around the world. 40, there was a really bad issue with the 40 VPN that lots of government organizations use, so they had to patch it really quickly. And then have a look through these publications, Secure by Design Tactics, Guidelines for Software Development, and Security Testing Guide. Make sure that you run plugins, audit, and plan upgrades. So maybe not straight away upgraded, but have a look at what's the gap between your current version and the actual active version, and scan your code base for security issues. So for the next 3 months, brush up on your secure coding standards for PHP and WordPress development. So read that document on the WordPress. Make sure that you know all the functions to sanitize code. Make sure you prepare a SQL statement. Review all your code base. And have a scheduled discussions with your colleagues at work, with project managers, for example. Say, hey, yes, we are developing a web application for the client, but this is the extra requirements that the client might want. That actually might be a good way to sell your extra services as well, saying, hey, you want extra security, that will be extra plugins, extra time. But your website will be super secure. And you can, every now and then, you can have a look at recent security vulnerabilities, how they were fixed, or if something is not patched, because WordFans shows you if the security vulnerabilities was patched or not. You can try to find the vulnerability and patch it yourself, just for your own entertainment, sort of capture the flag. And review your existing projects based on these tactics. And for the next 6 months, dive deep into OWASP cheat sheets. There's a lot of them. Some of them might not be applicable to you, but some of them will be. When you start your next project, maybe start it with those secure by design tasks as well, saying, oh, here's like 20 tasks that's already there to make our next web application secure. Try one of the online trainings. There is Linux provides a new free training. I have a link to it as well. That's just free, best practices for coding for security as well. Yeah, and become a security champion. And here are the resources. All the resources are there, the GitLab repository and all the links. So follow the project, start it, fork it, create issues, say, oh, this particular plugin is not good. Here's what we use. Yeah, just add it to the list. Any questions?
Round of applause. So just quickly, before we run into questions, hands up if you've ever been affected by a security problem in your website. Almost everyone. Now, put your hands up if you've caused one of those bugs yourself. Keep your hands up if you fixed it. Round of applause for them. It's not just you getting hacked, it's everyone. So they're the ones who keep everything running. Now, does anyone have any questions? Okay.
Thanks for the great talk. I had a couple of questions, just two things that I've come across and thought I could do with some tips. First of all is privately identifiable data with customers having their own forms. So the good old, I've given my client gravity forms or something like that, and they go and make their own form that allows people to upload their resumes to apply for jobs. And the server doesn't support PIF, things like that. Do you have any tips for mitigating such things? And secondly, I had a situation before where a CVE vulnerability was being reported by an audit company falsely for WordPress. It was around the REST API. And no matter what I did, they just said, oh, our tool says this is a vulnerability. So I ended up having to write a patch. But do you have any recommendations about dealing with audits when some of these vulnerabilities of being false positive reported? Have you experienced that before?
For the number two, I haven't, but I've heard about the instances where hackers actually trying to report the vulnerabilities and provide the patch, and it's actually a hacked patch. Yes. So in this case, yeah, just stand your ground. Say, well, where's the proof? Did they actually have a CVE ID?
It's a CVE ID for the REST API for user disclosure. Mm-hmm. When they used to have more information on the user REST API, which was closed in 4.7, I think, of WordPress. So what I ended up doing is just wrote a patch that made the user REST API require authentication, and that closed it off.
Yep.
But they just reported it as user disclosure, even though it was actually the public side of that list of users or authors. It just shows the authors.
Yeah. It's actually still, if you go to WordPress.org and go to the user API, you'll see the users and their slugs because it's public data. But the thing is as well, some of the reporters are driven by bounty. So that could have been they reported the WordFence is giving away $30,000 to big issues. So they could have been driven by that as well. But with the question number one, if it's a client need to understand the severity of the issue of keeping just open data like this, CVs of applicants. And this is actually a policy, the government policy in Australia, that after disclosure of millions of data of Australians with Optus and Medibank, nothing happened to those companies. So that's why the small businesses is like, oh, if I disclose those issues, it's not my problem. If Optus and Medibank didn't really. So the only thing I think will be to say to them, you actually have to do it, the legislation is coming, and if you are going to breach somebody's privacy, and especially if they are ticking the box saying, oh, we're not going to share this information, then it's going to be your actual company and you're going to get fined. So just more on a policy level. So a couple of issues in this particular security by design is like project management or client management issues. So what's your disclosure policy? Whose email? Who is going to be responsible in your company? Because we're developers, but you are the client, to notify your clients, your own clients, that the site has been breached and their data has been leaked. Yeah.
Thank you.
Quick.
Just very quick. Oh, sensitive mic. Okay, I was kind of shocked at the start when I was looking at, okay, you've got the core vulnerabilities as opposed to the plugin vulnerabilities, and the plugin vulnerabilities were way off the charts. And I'm kind of shocked that when I'm writing a plugin at the moment, quite a simple one, but at the same time, I thought it was pretty hardcore how WordPress audited the plugins before they released them onto the plugin, into the plugin repository. And I was kind of shocked that there was that many vulnerabilities. I mean, you know, someone was talking about ACF in the last session, and I mean, ACF on PatchStack had like 10 vulnerabilities in the last month. And it's crazy just how many plugin vulnerabilities there are. Is there any kind of resources, this being my question, are there any kind of resources out there for people like me who are writing plugins who want to have security by design and want to basically be able to say, well, here's my code. Can you please tell me where I'm going wrong? Because I don't want to put the people using my plugin at risk.
If there is a code auditing helpers, yeah, it's well, one of the so SAST and DAST, the static and dynamic security testing on GitHub or GitLab can be a good tool to use. Also running, so this is, there's like everything, they say, oh, automatic testing of security vulnerabilities on your code. It's really difficult because they might be very, very, the testing software or AI system might not be aware of, oh, this URL is only supposed to be accessible by admins. Oh, it's open to the world. Do we know if it's a vulnerability or not? So it's clear definitions of your routes and the applications, user management and user roles that your plugin might be defining, and the best practices. So review the secure development practices from the WordPress.org as well, making sure your input sanitized, your SQL queries prepared, things like that, yes.
Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for. I did miss a few questions. You're around all weekend?
Yep.
And you're around down the front here to ask any more questions directly.